is the BHAW Army Wrestling Radio Show. This is episode 14. We got guest USMA 2010 graduate. He was a team captain, two-time UAWJ champ, two-time runner-up. Army's last All-American, Matt Kyler.
Welcome to the show, Matt.
What up, Matty?
How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
We're excited for this. We took a week off. JT went on a little vacation. He needed a week away. It was getting too tough on him. So he came back rejuvenated, hair flowing, looking good, ready to go.
He does have bigger lats than you though.
That's very debatable. Actually, I don't know if that's
invisible lat syndrome. All right. Well, I got a fresh glass of kombucha here, and I'm ready to get going. So, Matt, coming out of high school, PA state champ, multiple-time state placer. B-Row threw out some little PA statistics on the pre-call. Apparently, you were the last PA native to beat Jordan Oliver. Can you confirm?
I believe so.
We'll claim it. So back then, you were a small guy, right? And what schools were you looking at, and what ultimately led you to choosing West Point?
So I had wanted to go to West Point when I was little. I had goals up on my wall when I was like 10 that I wanted to win PJWs. So Pennsylvania Junior Wrestling. I wanted to be a state champion. I think number 3 was go to West Point, and then number 2 and number 1, I wanted to be a national champion, and I wanted to be an Olympic champion. And those were my 5 goals that I had on my wall. And when I got to high school, I got away from it because I kind of just wanted to wrestle, to be honest, when I was going to college. And I started getting recruited by Penn State. I grew up going to club there. I thought I was getting recruited pretty heavily by Lehigh, but that wasn't really the case. So I took recruiting trips to Penn State, Lehigh, West Point, and then very late in the game, I took a recruiting trip to Penn because there was Coach Reyna had left kind of suddenly. I know he's back now, but Zeke Jones took over, and I spoke with him, and I was really impressed with him. I came up to West Point, and I walked around, and I think I knew pretty well what I was getting into when I went to West Point. I think sometimes people don't, but all my questions were about pretty much being a national champ at West Point. There really wasn't a whole lot of like cadet type questions because I really didn't, but I thought I knew kind of what it was like going to school there. Anyhow, I was very close to going to Penn State. I was driving home one afternoon from Lifton, and I talked to Coach Hughes, who at the time was the assistant at Penn State, and he was also one of my club coaches growing up. And I was like, "Hey, are you going to be around for like the next, 4 or 5 years?" And he's like, "Well, I can't really make any promises, but I got a family and we live in Happy Valley." And I was like, "Well, I'll talk to you later." And I got home, and I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to Penn State. And I'm like, "I'm going to Penn State." And she's like, "Well, you got something in the mail today. I think you should take a look at it." And I had gotten my minutes letter that day from West Point. And this is a strange story, but I had really never I really thought about a lot of things, and I'd been praying about where I was going to school. And I thought for sure, at that point I was going to go to Penn State. And the night before I was kind of praying about it, and I was like, if you want me to go wherever I go, I'll go. And I don't know if it was a coincidence, but I got my West Point letter the next day, and I just kind of took that as a sign. 180 in about 5 minutes after I got my minutes letter. So,
That's pretty cool. I've never heard that before, Matt.
Yeah, you never. I feel like we were in school together for 2 years, and I never heard that story.
Well, I've always kept that one pretty close to my chest, but I was
appreciate sharing.
About to go to Penn State. I came home from practice or lifting that day, and I told my mother I was going to Penn State.
Well, you certainly wouldn't want your name tied to them. They're not very good anyway. So,
so Matt, what was the timeline? So you said you came back from a lift. Was that right before your senior year started, or like what was the timeline? Like I'm trying to like think through when you made that decision and when you committed.
So the Penn State was the very first recruiting trip I went on. And I was very comfortable with Penn State. I knew everybody there. So that would have been September that I went on my recruiting trip. And then my next recruiting trip, I went to Lehigh. And I just kind of thought, I was like, I really liked Lehigh. I really wanted to go there, actually. And I thought they were recruiting me really hard. And I got on the recruiting trip, and it was me, Mike Gray, Caruso, and Parisi, of all people. And I'm trying to think who the other guy was. But anyhow, we just got there, and I had thought that Lehigh was, pretty interested in me at the time. And Coach Strobel got up, and in front of everybody, he goes, I've done a home visit at everybody's house. And I only come and do home visits at people that I really, really want. And I was like, well, he didn't do a home visit at my house. And it was like, he looked at me, and he kind of like, and he's like, he realized he made like a boo-boo kind of, and he was like, and I want to do a home visit at your house. So, but then the recruiting trip, I guess, it went well. I still really liked it there. I liked it. It was a small school. It was in Pennsylvania. I really liked the Lehigh fans, just growing up in Pennsylvania. I thought they were really knowledgeable people about wrestling. And it was somewhere where I thought I would fit in well. And they didn't give me any money. And I was like, well, not going here. And I had a big chip on my shoulder about that. I was really, really mad about, I thought I got led on a little bit. Of course, they wanted Mike for, natural reasons because he was a 4-time state champ. And at the time we were so it completely made business sense, but that's not how you see it when you're 18. So,
so you get to West Point, you're plebe year, projected to be a 25-pounder. As the season's getting closer, I'm remembering, okay, it's probably going to be a struggle for you to get down to 25. Talk us through, kind of your plebe year transition and, starting a year, starting preseason, maybe thinking of 25 and then being at 33 and then going up to 41. Talk us through your plebe year a little bit.
So I don't really remember exactly the timeline, but I know when I showed up at Beast, I weighed about like 131, 132. And I mean, I was pretty thin, but I was definitely growing even when I came to Beast.
You weren't living that mess hall diet yet.
And by the time Beast was over, I went from weighing like 131 and being about 5'5", 5'6" maybe. I grew like 2 or 3 inches during Beast.
In the waist.
And I also put on about 12 pounds. So I went from weighing like 131, 132 to like 142, 143 by the time we started preseason, and we started trying to like certify. And I mean, I think I never really got under like probably like 136 when I was like trying to certify, because I did actually certify at 125 before the flat weight. I never did the flat weigh-in, but I did get, I passed the first gate. And then I was like, okay, I want to wrestle 33. And I don't know. I just wasn't really losing any weight. I was like I wasn't very good at cutting weight. I'd never done it before. So that was probably part of it.
I recall.
And so there was probably a little bit lack of experience. It probably still should not have been an issue, at least at first. But in December, we wrestled like East Stroudsburg. And I remember getting off the mat. I beat the guy, pretty handily, but I came off the mat and the Clay Wolf felt me, and I was bone dry. Like bone dry, was not sweating at all. And just got, and I remember, we weren't going to wrestle for a month till like Lone Star Duels, and I was like, I could like take a break. I don't have to watch what I eat. Really dumb, really dumb move. And I got home like a week and a half later after tees, and I was like, I'm not even going to jump on the scale until like, whenever Christmas. I'm not going to put that much weight on. I'll keep on working out. I weighed like 151, 152, and I was like, oh, this could be a pretty big issue. So I like started coming back down, and we got back for Christmas, and I was down to like 145, 144, and everybody else on the team came back, and they were really about the same amount over, because I was very worried about it. And I was like, okay, well, everybody else is, around, even like the 25 pounders, they're like 10 pounds over. Everybody's coming in. And I was like, okay, I'll probably be fine. But we were doing 2-a-days, and I did not lose a pound during 2-a-days. And I was like watching close. So I told coach about like 3 or 4 days before, I can't even remember who we wrestled, but I was like, Coach, Barbie, I'm not going to be able to make weight. And he's like, all right, well, he's like, I don't know if he was mad. I don't know if he was upset, but he's like, okay. He's like, we think maybe you should go up and wrestle 141 when we go to Lone Star Duels. You'll wrestle at least 2 of the matches at 141. And I wrestled all 4 of them. I went 2-2 out there, but I lost to 2 pretty good guys. I lost to Nathan Morgan from Oklahoma State. Pretty close match, and it's like, okay, I want to wrestle 41.
I had a very similar conversation with Coach Barbie, and he was like, well, if you really want a soda, just make sure it's diet.
But I was very thankful that I got to move up to 141 anyway.
So I've heard this crazy story about that same year about, apparently it was the morning of a dual meet, and this is my worst nightmare, okay? So the fact that this happened to someone just like totally confirms that this was a real thing. The morning of a dual mate, and you get the dreaded call like 5 a.m., everyone out for a mandatory drug test, and like, to use your phrase, you're bone dry. And they're like, you will pee in this cup. I don't care if we sit here all day. And they force you to drink a whole gallon of water. Tell me about this.
Okay, so it was the day before wrestle-offs.
Oh.
When I was a freshman. So it was Friday. We were wrestling off at where we do the IOCT. What's the name of it? So that's where we were wrestling.
Hayes Gym.
Hayes Gym. So we were wrestling in Hayes Gym on Saturday, and I got 10%, drug test, and it really wasn't that I like didn't have to go to the bathroom. It was more like kind of like stage fright. And a couple of these seniors, the seniors started yelling at me, which wasn't going to help it. And they're like, "You're going to force hydrate." And I was like, "No, I'm not." I'm like, I'm not going to drink like a bunch of water right now. And I did not typically backtalk people like that, but I told these seniors that they were not going to allow me to force hydrate. And then the TAC NCO got involved, and his name was Sergeant Espy, and he started just like screaming at me and was just flipping out. And I was like, if you just leave me alone for a little bit, like I'll go to the bathroom. Just like stop staring over my shoulder like creepers, Yeah. And he's like, "You're going to drink water, or I'm going to like UCMJ you." They started making me drink water, and I went to breakfast. A couple of the there was a couple guys from the team that went to go talk to my TAC officer. One of them was Travis Featherstone, and I think Featherstone, he was doing his best, but he probably did more harm than good when he went in there. And then so SP's even madder, so he's yelling at me. And then Mike Tatz was another guy, who he was hurt, my whole freshman year. He never wrestled, but just a good guy. Went in there, was like kind of talking to my TAC MCO, and anyhow, they're forcing me to drink, and I'm like, great, I won't have to like run all this off, because it's like the other thing was I didn't really understand that I was like a pound and a half over when I got up like the day before. So I didn't really understand those kind of things. So I went drinking, I drank like a whole gallon of water by the time I finally go to the bathroom at like 10 o'clock. And then I go to like chemistry, I think. And I went like 3 times in the matter of like an hour then, because they force hydrated me. And then I go, and I obviously made weight the next day for the wrestle-offs. It definitely made it a lot worse on me. I was definitely running a lot to like get back down. And I was so ticked on Monday because my TAC NCO like had the gall to like say to me on like Monday, he's like, "What ended up having you to wrestle off?" And I was like, "Well, I won." And he's like, "See, it didn't make a difference that you were drinking all that water." And I was very angry about it.
Did you double leg him on the spot?
Huh?
Did you double leg him right then and there?
What's that?
Did you double leg him right then and there?
I wish I could. I mean, I actually he was a very good TAC NCO. So, I mean, that was like a negative experience with him. But, I mean.
Talk about a nightmare, though. Yikes.
But I was not very happy about the whole situation for sure.
So let's moving past that, like you get to the end of the year, your plebe year, going into the plebe year, would you have expected, that you're going to be like an IWA finalist? Like what were your goals, your plebe year, and like, did it end up where you think it was, or did you maybe overachieve, you think?
When I came to West Point, I definitely had a chip on my shoulder a little bit with, I thought I should have been recruited a lot harder by some people. I was wrestling at Penn State. I was wrestling with some of like their college kids. I was wrestling with like Mark McKnight a decent amount, like in the spring before plebe year. And, I'd been around the college room for like probably three, 4 years at that point. So, there was nothing about college wrestling that really like intimidated me, So, I mean, I don't think I expected to come and be like the next coming, but I definitely expected that I felt that I could wrestle with anybody right from out of the gate. Like I was not intimidated by really wrestling anybody. So it's probably a little bit of both. I don't think I necessarily thought that I was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Not that I was or wasn't, but I definitely was not intimidated by college wrestling at all.
I think that's the mentality you got to have as a freshman. If you want to seek success, you got to have that chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just intimidated and you don't have any confidence. So,
especially as a plebe coming in, I mean, there's already enough distractions that make you feel like you're not going to be successful. Kind of looking back, you know, you hold a lot of records, West Point. You have, you know, the most wins at 146, most wins in a single season at 43, number 3 all time in falls. Thanks to JT putting all these stats together. Probably one of the most consistent wrestlers in Army history, you know, from a seasonal basis, you know, getting the amount of matches, the amount of wins. You know, not to recall bad memories, but like, if anything separates, what do you think separates your All-American seasons from like the seasons you didn't?
No, I mean, you know, when you're an All-American as a sophomore, I mean, I fully expected to, you know, finish out, you know, an All-American the next 2 seasons. I mean, I believe even now, you know, I still believe like, hey, you know, we wrestled the national tournament a different day. I end up winning. That's just kind of the mentality that I had about things. I never, I don't think I was arrogant about things, but I never walked onto the wrestling mat thinking that I was going to lose. And even when I did lose, you know, I mean, it sounds dumb, but and people talk about just like running out of time, but that's really how I like looked at things. I was like, you know, I had them on the ropes at the end, you know, or you know, I made a mistake here and I should have done this, and he took me down here because of that, or it was always, you know, it was always because of something I did, but it was also something that I could like rationalize where I was like, next time that's not going to happen. But I don't know. I mean, I think I was a better wrestler as a senior than I was as a sophomore. I think I had improved, but you know, I guess maybe it was just I had a better tournament as a sophomore, and I don't think I had a good tournament as a junior year, and as a senior, I think I was wrestling, you know, as well as I'd ever wrestled at nationals, and it was just kind of the way the chips fell. I got beat in the quarters by Kyle Terry, who was a guy that, for whatever reason, seemed like he had my number. I lost to him more times than I beat him, that's for sure. And he actually beat me in nationals twice, and I lost to him. He got third, and then I turned around and lost in double overtime in the round of 12 to Kyle Rochelle, and he got fourth. So in back-to-back matches, you know, I lost to 2 guys that, you know, placed top 4. So bad memories on that last match. So, but I think there's very few guys that are lucky enough to go out on top. So I think that's something that a lot of wrestlers can relate to. So.
I can. Well, talking about a good moment then, do you remember the moment when you All-American? I mean, your Army's last All-American, unfortunately. But I believe we got some guys coming through that I think we would have had guys here in 2020 that would have. But as for now, Matt Kyler stands as the last All-American for Army. Do you remember that feeling? Because I remember I was in the crowd, and I remember the lady like, All-American from Army. And the place went nuts because everybody loves seeing Service Academy guy do good. Do you remember that?
I have some very vivid memories about that match, but I don't really remember that in particular. The
Yeah.
things that I remember very vividly about that match um, were one, it was right in front of the Penn State section, and I was wrestling a kid from Penn State. I was wrestling Garrett
But
Scott.
you're wrestling their boy.
So, and I had grown up um, going to club with Garrett, so we kind of grew up together a little bit. So I knew him very well, and I'd lost to him very close at the Penn State Open. I lost to him in overtime. But the thing I remember most about that match is that whole tournament. I was losing every match that I won. And I gave up the first takedown, and I got a reversal, and I rode him out for about 2 minutes in the first period, and he took down in the second period. And after I had rode him for about 20 seconds, he finally cuts away, and he gets an escape. And as soon as he escapes and the ref sounds off of one, I shoot right in on a single leg, and I take him down on the edge. And when we got up, the ref goes two. The ref is turned around to like walk to the center of the match, and I was like, when he turned around, I stood up, and Garrett pushed me into the table, like the table workers, and I like tripped back over the table. The table's all like messed up. Coach Maldonado was there when I was a freshman. He had this like dumb like media guide like thing, and he was like off, and I just see him like spazzing out like as I'm like getting up, and it was like one of those things where I didn't get a penalty point because the ref didn't see it because he was completely
like WWF right there. The ref didn't see it.
When I got up though, I thought to myself, I was like, the floodgates have just opened. You got this match won. I was like, I knew I was in his head. I knew he was upset. I knew he couldn't wrestle, and I knew I was going to beat him fairly easy. And from that point, I ended up pinning him at the end of the match. So, but that's what I remember. I remember the most thing I remember most about that match was that moment, and I was like, this match is over. You smell blood. The floodgates are open. All just you got to beat. So that's kind of what I remember most.
So now switching gears a little bit, you were coached all 4 years under Coach Barbie, and then he retired and left West Point after your first year. Talk about your relationship with him, and maybe some of those conversations you guys had. You're graduating, he's graduating. In a sense of leaving West Point. Talk about that in your relationship with him.
I don't really think I ever talked to Coach Barbie when he was leaving before he left. I mean, I remember him helping me out with some things technically that made like a difference. When I was a sophomore, I was having a hard time sprawling correctly, and I remember during Christmas break just working on people getting in on my legs and just perfecting a sprawl, and just like Coach Barbie and me working on that. I remember working on some, a lot of stuff that with faking and coming up to the head. But most of the stuff that with Coach Barbie, it was, most of our conversations were, wrestling related. And honestly, for me, that's all I really wanted to talk about a whole lot. I didn't really want to talk about, too much else. So it was really great for me. I really thought Coach Barbie was a very good coach. And I think he was a good coach for me, for sure. He did a lot for me.
He was a very technical guy. You're a very technical guy. I can see how it just molds and matches up together.
Yeah. So.
Like peanut butter and jelly. So I want to talk about the rivalry with Navy for just a couple moments. Obviously, we didn't get a W during your tenure or mine, but man, there was a dogfight for some of them years. And not that the quality is down, but there definitely was a couple years where there's multiple All-Americans on both sides, and highly nationally ranked guys. I know you had quite a back and forth with Bryce Sidoris, and then Casey picked that up when you left. Man, he was mean as snot. What do you recall from that series, and how much more does it mean to you seeing Army coming out on the top side now?
No, I remember the first year they won, and I mean it felt really good to finally see them get over the hump. And I mean I think some of it was probably attitude with guys on our team a little bit. When I was in school, there was definitely years that I think we had a better all-around team than them, but we just, for whatever reason, we just never got it done in the dual meet. So that was very draining. I know there was always a feeling, for some reason, there used to be a feeling when we were wrestling Navy, it's like, okay, what's going to go wrong this time, this year? So like, I mean, like a couple of those incidences, like I remember when Casey, hurt his knee right before I wrestled Bryce. That was at Army. So I remember Casey, hurting his knee, but I mean,
crying.
There's just some weird, great brother you are, but they're just like, even when I was a senior, I lost against Navy, the guy that I should have never lost to, and I mean.
Do you attribute that to anything?
I mean, I had a little bit of a layoff, where I was a little banged up, where I hadn't wrestled for a while, but I mean, I just didn't get it done. I didn't wrestle well, and I will say this, I definitely think the team has progressed a lot, and I know last year I was really happy with how our team was wrestling, but Coach Burnett was a fantastic coach, and he definitely scouted everybody on our team, and he knew everything that like I ever did, and down to like stuff that he would like say stuff when I'd hear him when I was wrestling like Bryce a couple times.
He was saying stuff that you were going to do before you even did it.
He was saying stuff before I was about to hit it, and just so like specifically, I remember wrestling Bryce. Two incidents wrestling with Bryce. I beat Bryce at all academies on like a last 10 or 15 second takedown, and he took a bad shot, and I went like hand over the head, and as soon as Bryce took that bad shot, I just saw Coach Burnett's like out of the corner of his eye. He like threw his hands in the air because he knew, he's like, I told you couldn't do that, like as I'm like in on my shot. And then another incident with Coach Burnett was Bryce was digging up an underhook, and I'm like, man, I think I want to try to like hit a fireman's carry right now. And I had like attempted one fireman's carry, like I'd hit it a couple times in college, but it wasn't like a big move for me by any stretch. And I think I did try to hit a fireman's carry in the Navy match as a freshman. And he's jacking an underhook up, and he's like, he's about to hit a fireman's. I was like, man.
He knew.
He knew. So I think Coach Burnett was a very good coach.
He was. I did not like him, though, but that's okay.
I mean, I didn't like a lot of people at Navy. It's funny, the guys at Navy that I did like. I liked Bryce a lot. I thought Bryce was a very nice guy from any time I interacted with him.
I'm sure
Volpinski was just a stud, and I liked him a lot too. But there's some other guys from Navy that I don't really care for.
That's right, dirty seaman. So after graduation, you branch infantry, and now you transitioned even out of the military into the civilian sector. I think a couple people, or a lot of people, probably had expected you to make a run into the WCAP program and continue wrestling for some period of time. Was there maybe a reason that you chose not to go in that direction?
Well, when I was at West Point, I've always tried to do everything 100%, and I've never really, once I've made a decision, I've never really looked back. But at the time when we were in school, there was a lot of people. There's a lot of people. You'd hear the announcements on the poop deck, and there was a lot of people at the time dying in like Iraq, Afghanistan, a lot of West Pointers, and for whatever reason, to me, I never really felt right about trying to go and do WCAP. That was a personal decision for me. I don't think that that's the right decision for everybody, and but at the time, I just did not feel good about the decision to go and wrestle WCAP. I thought I needed to go and serve my time. I wanted, I branched infantry because I wanted to. Very happy to branch infantry, and I really enjoyed the infantry a lot. But at the time, I didn't feel right doing it, and it's just kind of the gut feeling.
That makes sense. But man, I wish we would have got to see you hit a couple more matches, because I think you would have been pretty darn competitive.
Yeah,
I mean, Kyle Rochelle was a dude that you lost to in the blood round, and he was a Pan American champ like a couple years later. So I think you would have been right there in the fold.
Maybe, you never know. I know. I would have been more interested in wrestling freestyle, that's for sure. But
so you do your time in the Army. You're out of the Army now. You're living in Charleston, home of the Citadel, the military academy of South Carolina, pretty much, or at least that's what they call it down there.
That's what they say.
It's a little running joke in the South. But you got started in the coaching a little bit. How does it feel to like kind of be back into coaching? Does it bring up any old memories? Kind of what's that like? You've been doing it for, is it a year now or 2 years?
Just last year, and I think I'm going to try to help out some next year. But I mean, really, all it really is I really love wrestling. I still really enjoy watching wrestling. I still, my tastes now are more, I like watching international wrestling a lot more than I used to. I still really enjoy watching high-level college wrestling. But the Citadel is the only D1 program in South Carolina, and I like going to the home matches. And
whoa, shots fired at Presbyterian College.
Well, yeah, they just started.
Forgot about them.
But I'm sure Coach Cody will yell at me later because I doubt he'll watch the video. But anyhow, I just kind of, I can't really get in very often, but I'll probably try to get in there twice a week, maybe this year, now that I'm not so busy.
I heard you got a really strict boss who won't let you have some free time.
Yeah, my boss, Whit Dunning, told me that if I don't get back to work, and I'm not working until 9 o'clock, every night, that he's going to fire me. So no, but I work with one of our teammates, Whit. He's really good. Really enjoying it. He is my boss, so he does a really good job, and learning a lot from him right now about what we do. So
does it ever bring you back to like plebe year when he's like a team leader and you're a plebe and trying to listen to Whit? Does it bring it back like 10 years?
No, not really, because like for like wrestling room, that's what I've always loved about wrestling is it's like you know, it doesn't really matter what you think about yourself. When you step on the mat, it's you and that's it. And it's like you either get it done or you don't get it done. And that's why I've always loved about wrestling. That's what I think makes wrestling the greatest sport. Um, I mean, when you guys were asking me about some of the stuff with not being an All American, one of the later one of the things that always sometimes I thought West Point let people creep in, like the football team. They gave them excuses to lose all these games the whole time I was in school. Like, oh, they go to West Point. Everybody would make excuses for them. Like, they have all these requirements. And I actually got kind of looked at like I was crazy because I was in a captain's meeting and they were like, we're going to have hotels for the football team for home games. And I was like, why? And they're like, well, it's distracting for them to, be in the barracks before a home game. And I was like, well, I won 40 matches last year and I was in the barracks before every one of them.
Ooh,
and they told,
flexing on them.
and they were like, well, that's different. And I told Mr. McIntyre, and I'm sure he remembers it. I said, well, he's like, that's different. And I was like, what do you mean it's different? I win and they lose? And I guess where I'm not trying to bust on the football team, that's not what I'm getting at, but I feel like sometimes one of the problems with West Point was people allowed doubt to creep into their mind where they're like, I have all these things going on at West Point. I have my military requirements and my academic requirements, and I got personal issues at home or whatever's going on. And to me, you either win or you lose. And that where I'm going with that is you're at the end of the day, you're responsible whether you win on the wrestling mat or not. And to me, even in sports, you might have these academic requirements that are hard, but I've always been of the mentality that winners win. And I feel like that has come into the program a lot more than it used to be. And that's one of the things that I'm very happy with the wrestling in the last year or so, from watching them compete, where I see guys going after guys, trying to score points. Sometimes I've seen some of them make mistakes, but they rebound very quickly. And that's what I want to see from Army wrestlers. I want to see guys that they're winners in everything they do. And that's something that I'm very proud of with our program right now, is I think that mentality is coming into the program.
That's right. No excuses to get it done. So yes or no, can we see you moving up into full-time coaching?
No.
Okay. Do you have a toughest practice that you can recall, Matt?
I do remember a particular practice where we were running the ski slope.
That's a favorite of everybody's.
It's a consistent theme.
Well, the reason why I remember this one so well is I would say that, I always prided myself in trying to win the right way and always doing the right thing. And when I was a junior, before one of the times we ran the ski scope, I went down to a wedding with a couple of my friends on Saturday night.
You ruined the rest of preseason for us.
And I was drinking, for sure. And I'd probably drank like 3 times my entire life up until that point. And I was miserable all day Saturday. And I was even miserable on Monday when I got to school. And then we went and ran the ski slope, and I'm sure that I was probably still dehydrated, but I started cramping on the ski slope. I remember my legs buckling on the ski slope, and I was super embarrassed with myself, and I was very, very critical about myself at that point. I think that was probably in like September even. And I was like, this will never happen again. I was like saying to myself that this will never happen again. I will never place myself in this situation where something affects, my wrestling practice or my conditioning workout. This will never happen again. So that's the practice that I remember the most.
I remember that vividly. It was right after Labor Day weekend because we came back and that happened. And then Willman said, now you guys aren't allowed to drink until through the whole season. So before you could drink during preseason, like
cut out. I don't really remember that, but I mean, I remember I admitted that I was drinking. I don't remember. I was definitely a junior, so I was definitely underage at that point,
I gotta edit that out now. That's okay.
Really? Why? Oh.
This is a law-abiding podcast.
Yeah. Well, are they going to retroactively give me some hours? Probably.
That's right.
Who knows? So, last question, Kyle. So, thinking back, what's the biggest takeaway you have from being an Army wrestler? What does it mean to you? What impact has it had on your life?
What? I think I lost you. I lost that last little bit.
Just what impact has it made on your life being an Army wrestler?
I think I obviously love wrestling, and honestly, with the Army wrestling program, almost all my closest friends are some way related to Army wrestling. In fact, I would say almost all of my friends from West Point are from wrestling, or they were roommates of my friends from wrestling. So that's the only way I met people, because at the time at West Point, I really wanted to do really well in all things, but I definitely did not really care about my social life at all, for the most part. So wrestling, and so all my friends from West Point are absolutely from wrestling, and I think that's one of the things I'm mostly thankful for, even though the majority of my friends did not wrestle for 4 years at West Point. So, but hopefully they'll start watching, and they'll start donating some money and stuff. And
that's right.
Yeah.
Bring them back into the fold.
Are you the POC for your class?
I am. Yeah.
That brings up a good point. If you got recruited to go to West Point, you probably wasn't going to get on your own terms. So you at least owe them some money back to the program.
Well, funny story, Big Troil. I actually did get in on my own.
Hey, you're very few. Don't be knocking on us.
I got in on my own too, from the prep school.
That's right. Endorsed by the president.
From Bob Moore.
Yeah.
Well, you got anything else, Matt?
No, I hope that got you what you wanted.
Thanks for tuning in to the BHAW radio show. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. If there's something you'd like to hear on a future show, reach out to us on any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Or you can reach us at email, bhaw.radio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, go Army, be Navy.